All right, I'm impressed that you all made it back on time. I kind of wandered in and I was thinking, oh, they're going to take much longer than the hour since we crammed so much in this morning, but you did a great job of getting back. So if you think about this morning and you think about kind of the main points about the treatment, what are some of the ways that you would describe the treatment for depression? What are the kind of definitive characteristics of it? Okay, so there's affective education, which is that you're teaching the kids to recognize their emotions, and the way that you're doing it is by getting them to notice what's happening in their body, their brains, and their behavior. And so why are we teaching them to recognize their emotions?
To link across feelings.
Yay! Yeah, to link so that they understand the link between thinking, emotions, and behaviors. And so they're getting the rationale for doing the treatment. So if I'm a kid and I've just learned that there's a link between my thinking, my behavior, and my emotions, then what does that suggest I might change if I want to improve my emotions? There we go. There it is. So it's a real simple rationale, a real simple model, but they get it. And that's what we want. Okay. And the conceptually, I kept referring to one thing to keep in mind from a conceptual standpoint, and it was related to how beliefs develop, and that kids are active. There we are, yeah, they're active. They actively go about bringing meaning from what happens to them. And so that's that basic concept that we're always using when we're trying to conceptualize what's going on with the case. And as the therapist, you're always thinking to yourself, oh, the child has this thought. So what's going on that would lead them to have that particular thought, or the adolescents having that thought, okay? Let's see. So there were two parts to conceptualizing the cases. And we talked about persons research. And they are?
Problem list.
The problem list and thoughts that support it. Great. Good. Okay. When the first half of the intervention is primarily designed to do what? Yeah, it is behavioral activation and some problem solving and coping skills that create the behavioral activation. And that sets the stage then for the cognitive restructuring that we're going to do. Okay. That seems that's good. I think we got it. All right. So this afternoon we're going to be talking about hopefully we'll get through coping skills training and problem solving training, and then a little bit of how do you set up the cognitive restructuring. So that'll be our goal. I'm sure we'll make it through coping and problem solving. I'm hopeful that we'll make it through the setting the kids up for the cognitive restructuring. So I'll try to move at a good pace and stay at a good pace for that. All right. So so my agenda is to make it through coping skills, problem solving, and some intro to cognitive restructuring. Are there things that you want to be sure that we talk about or we add to our agenda? No? All right. So if you think of things as we go, let me know, and be sure to ask lots of questions, because it's a lot more interesting and fun to do if you ask questions about things. All right, so let's see. We reviewed, I forgot to ask you about your homework assignment. So, who wants to volunteer? Who noticed a time when they noticed their mood go up? Okay.
Okay. Well, I noticed I was irritable before lunch because I was hungry. So I noticed that my mood was different after eating and talking to a new friend.
Okay. So you noticed that your mood went up, and you were thinking maybe it's due to eating because that gets, I don't know, nutritionally it's helpful. But then you thought that there might be something else that helped your mood go up, and that was making a new friend and talking with a new friend. So if you noticed that you were feeling irritable at another time, what would you do in order to help eliminate the irritability then?
I'm trying to figure out what's causing it.
Okay? And so let's say that you knew it was due to not eating, then you'd eat. Okay, so let's say it was not due to not eating, or maybe it was, but anyway, you just thought, I'm feeling a little bit irritable, I'm kind of tired of this, what could I do to get over that irritability? So, what did you learn from lunch that you could do?
I think like changing the environment a little bit.
Okay.
Outside,
So getting outside's helpful. And?
taking a walk, and getting food, and talk to a friend.
Talk to a friend. Okay, so next time you're feeling irritable, it might help to talk to a friend, go outside and do something, go for a walk. And so how do you think that talking to a friend reduces irritability? How would that work?
Distraction.
Ah.
What you feel.
Yeah. So it would distract you if you were irritable because you were thinking about something like, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do and not enough time to do it in, and that person's really got me angry because they did this to bother me, or something like that. Then if you were talking with a friend, it could distract you. And then what else might make you feel better as a result of talking with a friend? What might you think about yourself if you were talking to a friend and it was a new person and the conversation went really well? What might you think about yourself?
I'm lovable.
Yeah, there you go. The people like me. I'm interesting. People like me. All right. So, and if you thought to yourself that people really like me, I get along well with people, how would you feel?
I feel good about myself.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so that's the kind of conversation that you engage in with the kids when you're trying to link their emotions to their thinking, and you're trying to help them understand that there are things they can do to cope. Okay, so that was the main thing, was just helping her to see that that's a good coping strategy. So what are some other things that you all did? So we had talking to somebody, we had going for a walk. So what would be good about going for a walk? How would that help you to feel better, especially if you're feeling a little irritable?
Moving, body.
Moving, so some moving.
Yeah.
And when you think about going for a walk, what do you usually think about? I mean, when you think of walking, you see the blue sky, you hear the birds, see the green out in the fresh air. It's relaxing, right? Isn't going for a walk relaxing? So if you're feeling kind of irritable, one of the ways to help yourself get over the irritability is to relax. So going for a walk is relaxing. Okay, so we've got talking with someone, and we've got relaxing things. They help mood go up. Okay, so what are some other things that people did that they noticed helped mood go up? Do you have one? You were smiling.
Laughing.
Laughing, okay. So did you just laugh out of the blue, or?
No, we're just sitting and talking and.
Okay, so then another way that interacting with people helps is they might tell funny stories, you might exchange information, and so it makes you laugh, and that helps you feel good. So meeting people and talking with people in general is nice because it makes you feel connected, And so that raises mood. And if you're talking with people and they make you laugh, then that raises mood too. So we know being with other people helps raise your mood. We know that doing calming things, like going for a walk, raises your mood. Okay, anyone do anything else?
I felt warm outside when it's cold here already. Very pleasant to be outside.
Okay, so again, that kind of was pleasant. It was kind of relaxing to be out there. It felt better. You didn't get all tight and shiver. Okay. All right. So did anybody, this is an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway. Did anybody go and do any exercise while they had lunch break? Nope. Exercise your jaws. Okay, so let's say that you look like you work out.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, what do you do for exercise?
What do I do for exercise?
Yeah.
Gym, I lift heavy objects, running.
Okay. So after you are at the gym and you lift heavy objects, if you go into the gym and you're feeling kind of stressed, like you've had a rough day, and you're not sure it's going to get better, and then you're lifting the heavy objects and you've done your run, how do you feel after that?
Definitely a lot better.
Yeah. Okay, so in that case, it would be exercise we could identify as a mood elevating experience, and it definitely is calming. Okay, so we got talking with other people, doing soothing and relaxing things, and then getting intense exercise. All right? You got one?
Yeah, just in general, like when I clean, it helps.
Okay. So cleaning would help you to feel better because you feel like you got something accomplished. So mastery activities also lead to an improvement in mood. All right? Anybody do anything fun while you were on break? I know there wasn't much of an opportunity. What's that? You hula hooped. Okay, so normally when you're talking with kids, you can get them to identify that there was something that they did that was fun. And so how does doing something fun lead to an improvement in mood?
It's a positive activity.
Okay, so it's reinforcing, brings you pleasure. All right, so that lifts mood. Anything that brings you pleasure is going to lift mood. And when you're doing the activity, what are you thinking about?
You've diverted yourself from
Yeah.
negative thoughts. You've changed your thinking.
Yeah, so your thinking shifted from whatever was making you down or stressed to something that's you're doing. So it engages you in thinking, so it distracts you again. Okay? So we got doing fun things, we've got doing social things, we've got exercise, and we've got doing soothing, calming things, going for a walk. All right? Anyone notice any kind of negative thoughts while you were at lunch? No? It's a pretty positive group. The actual balance is about 60-40. 60 positive, 40 negative in the typical person. So you're bound to have some negative ones come through. But if you did, then what you would do is you would change that thought. Okay? So there's really 5 primary types of coping strategies. There's doing something fun and distracting, and these actually are developmentally related. So the first coping strategy, well, the very first would be being nurtured, getting kind of soothing, nurturing things from your environment, from your parents. So that'd be the very first one. But after that, it's doing fun things. So our kids through elementary school, their primary coping strategy is going to be doing fun and distracting things. Then what builds in is also doing some soothing and relaxing things. And so soothing and relaxing comes from often from significant others or time that you have with significant others. And you're doing things that are kind of like, you know, a young child sitting on a parent's lap or sitting next to them kind of cuddled in or snuggling or snuggling with their pets and things like that. Then we've got also kind of in the elementary years, later in the elementary years, you get into physical activity. And so doing things that are physically demanding is another way to elevate mood. And then as they start to get in the higher end of elementary years into middle school, and then on into high school, you've got the social interactions. And the last coping skill that develops is changing the way that you think. And that's more so in the high school years. Kids can, these things don't happen in a lockstep fashion. So we did have middle schoolers who were changing their thinking, and even some elementary kids that were spontaneously doing that. But they still tend to be more behavioral in the elementary years. So when you, now when you have the question, and you see in a reading, teach kids coping skills, now you know what are the kinds of skills that you would teach kids. So if you were to think about kids that are like in the 10, 11-year-old age range, what kinds of things would they do for fun? Okay, video games.
Basketball.
Okay, so some basketball. What else?
Riding bikes.
Riding bikes, okay. So riding bikes would maybe be two things that could fit with getting some exercise. And then it also could fit with soothing and relaxing because you're out on the trails maybe or out on a pretty day. What's that?
It's fun and distracting.
Yeah, and it could be kind of fun and distracting. There you go. So you do it with a friend. Okay. So you do it with a friend. You go through the park. It's a nice day. And sometimes you ride really hard. Sometimes you just kind of coast. You've got a lot of them built in there. Okay, what else would kids do? What are things that kids at 10, 11 do for feeling kind of calm and relaxed?
They watch TV.
Okay, so they watch TV. What else? Read. Okay, so they read. What else?
Listen to music,
Listen to music.
arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts. One of the most common ones is they pet their pets, or they sit with their pets. And they list taking a hot bath, taking a hot bubble bath, taking a hot shower as soothing and relaxing. Remember one of the kids I worked with who had a real anger issue. We were having a hard time getting him to try to manage his anger. And finally, his mom said to him, just go and take a hot bath. Just do it. And he did it. He started playing with his cars and stuff in the water. And he got out, and his anger had significantly decreased. And he got it. At that point, he got it. If I take a bath, I get relaxed and calm, and my anger goes away. And from that point forward, we were able to teach him more coping strategies. But until then, he just didn't buy it. Okay, to expend energy, what else do the kids do? 10, 11, play basketball, ride bikes, swim, play soccer. Some of the kids run, things like that, and finding someone to talk to. The really interesting thing was that the kids could not only identify that talking with others was a good strategy, they could tell us who they were going to talk to. Because they, like you two said, laughing, they knew who the kids were that they could go and talk to that would make them laugh. And that's who they'd seek out when they were feeling stressed or down. Okay, what about teenagers? So for those of you who have people that you work with in high school, what kind of things would be fun and distracting for high schoolers?
Music.
Music. Okay. What else? Okay, hanging out with friends is a biggie. So we've got the find someone to talk to, we've got music. What else?
I tell them to
Sports. Okay, so sports would get us with the expending energy, journaling. So how do you think journaling works with them?
We use it, again, because it's a confidential space, so it's a way for them to get out what they're feeling, and then I save time in the end of group for them to share their journal if they choose to.
Uh-huh.
So then it counteracts their feelings of isolation when the other students have.
Okay, so it could work for connection, the social connection, and it might work and change the way you're thinking, because a lot of times when you journal, you get it down and then you feel like, okay, now I can set those thoughts aside. So it might be that it helps them that way. At least that works. It works that way when you're working with anxious kids and you want them to be able to fall asleep at night. You often can get them to journal and then set the anxious thoughts aside. Let's see, how about soothing and relaxing for your high school kids? Things that are socially appropriate to do, that are soothing and relaxing.
Listening to music.
Okay, listening to music, reading, art kind of stuff, laying on their bed listening to music. Again, we get the taking a bubble bath and reading with the lights down and candles going. Let's see, and we get a lot of the animals doing things with their pets. And obviously you get a lot of hanging out with friends, talking with friends, so you get a lot of social stuff. And the same kind of ways to expend energy would be sports and exercise. Tuma?
What do you do if someone brings up something like eating as a relaxing activity? Does that
Yeah.
potentially be harmful?
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm going back and looking at the data now, I was surprised at how many of the girls on the Kitty Sad's interview indicated a lot of body distortion kind of issues, more than I expected, and a lot of kind of eating issues. So they tended to restrict more. But if it was somebody who was eating, I guess I'd probably talk with them about what is it about eating that helps them to feel good. And so what would you guess it is?
Well, if it's something like desserts or whatever, they say, oh, I really love desserts, and they just find it to be fun.
Okay. All right, so if it was because they found it to be fun, then I would want to talk with them about moderation, and then what are other things that they could do when they want to have fun other than eat. And if it was for comfort, then I'd try to help them find other ways to obtain comfort. And if they're trying to kind of fill in for something that they're missing, then find other ways to get that thing that they're missing. It's more direct. Okay, so if you were going to teach coping skills and you wanted to teach kids these 5 general strategies, remember these are just the general strategies, and so within each strategy there's a multitude of things that they could do. And what you want to do is find out which things for each kid work. Okay? So what I want to do is, in order to teach the kids how coping skills work, is I want to bring things into my meeting and do them with them in the session. Okay? So, doing something fun and distracting. What are things that you could do in your meeting, either with a group or with an individual, that would be fun and distracting? Do you have one? Play a game. All right. Kids love to play games. So you can play a game. It's a little bit of an aside, but one of the things we try to do in the parent training is teach the parents that doing fun things with their kids elevates their mood. And so we get the kids and their parents to play games. And for a lot of the families, it's the first time they've ever played a game together. And the parents are shocked to see their child laughing, giggling, and being really pleasant. And so they really get to see in session how valuable games are. Okay, so you could play a game. Any other ideas?
Take a walk with them.
Okay, take a walk. I do that one more for the soothing and relaxing. Going for walks. Okay, any other thoughts about things that are fun that you've done with the kids?
Paint, color.
Okay, so do some sort of craft kind of thing that they might enjoy. So if you've got a kid who really is into art kind of things, you could do something that was artistic, something crafty. Okay? All right, any other ideas?
I find Jenga to be a lot of fun.
Okay,
Kids.
yeah.
Reactive and
Yeah, so Jenga's a lot of fun because it builds that kind of anxiety as the tower gets taller and taller and no one wants to be the one to knock it over. So that works really well. Okay, again, that'd be a kind of a game thing. Try to be creative and just come up with fun stuff. And we're not being very creative right now. So let's see. What about if you were going to do soothing and relaxing in session? What could you do?
Play an instrument.
Oh, okay. What else?
You could do a little yoga with them or deep breathing.
Okay, so you,
Sit down,
yeah,
get on the floor and stuff.
good. All right. So that works really well. Which population of kids would you guess has the most trouble with doing relaxation? Which disorder?
Anxiety.
Okay, it's not general. Well, ADHD would, yeah, but also kids with PTSD and a history of abuse because of the intimacy of it. So they have a lot of trouble with that one. But the depressed kids, it works great. Let's see. So listening to music, reading, deep breathing, teaching them how to breathe, like using bubbles. All right. What could you do in your office for expends energy?
jumping jacks.
Okay, you do jumping jacks. What else?
Dartboard.
A dartboard? You'd have to play a pretty energetic game, though.
Well, they have the ones with the Velcro and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can't stab anybody's out.
Huh.
You could do a little obstacle course.
Ah, okay. Obstacle course dart game. All right.
Could do jogging in place, wall push-ups.
Okay, push-ups, jogging in place, jump ropes.
Hopscotch.
What was that?
Hopscotch.
Hopscotch. Okay.
Too bad.
All right. And we did, with the kids in the groups, we did freeze tag. They like that one a lot. Nerf basketball in your office. Balloon volleyball. Those kind of things. Dance. That's right. You could do dance, the revolution thing. Kids get a kick out of that. And then we did in the groups we did silly dancing. And they would get really wild and expend all kinds of energy and get all sweaty. It was great. Okay, and then the talking to someone was easy in group because you had group members to talk to and the therapist to talk to, and so that worked and they felt connected. And then change the way you're thinking was something that you often had to just promote through the cognitive restructuring. So we did do a lot of choosing the activities based on group mood. If the kids seemed really lethargic and flat, we did expend energy activities. If they seemed kind of irritable, we'd do soothing and relaxing activities. If they just seemed kind of down, we'd do the fun and distracting activities. So the therapists were instructed to do a coping activity 7 times in the first 9 sessions. And we asked them to do an activity from each of the 5 areas, and then they could be free to use whatever for the other 2. And so I commonly just do an activity each meeting. It's 5 minutes, and it helps to make the point. So they choose an activity, you get a mood rating. Then you do the activity, you get another mood rating, you process, and then you talk about how you might use that in everyday life. So that's the typical way that we would do it. So getting the mood rating before and after does what? How does that help?
So if they do it, it'll help.
There it is. So that's kind of like a restructuring thing. It helps them to see that it really does make a difference. It really does work. Okay. All right. So we would do some coping skills training that was kind of programmed. And that would be done through homework assignments. So we would specifically ask the kids to do homework assignments where they would notice a time when they were feeling down, and then they'd try to use one of the 5 strategies and notice the impact that it had on them. So that was like specifically suggested that they do it, and the other way we would do it is just kind of spontaneously, like when you talk with them about what they did and what impact it had on mood. And so it's more like our conversation about lunch. It was just like talking about what they did spontaneously rather than specifically setting up as a homework assignment. Okay, so there's the Catch the Positive diary. And this is a really powerful tool. And here's how it works. It works in a number of different ways. So let's say that you're feeling irritable, and you're then likely to be noticing things that contribute to that, like, they took so long to get my lunch, and now I got it, and it's cold, and I wanted to have tea, but it's sweet tea, and I don't like sweet tea. So you notice all the things that make you feel irritable, okay? So let's say instead that you are supposed to be noticing positive things that are going on. And on the, you have a form, and in here, you have listed the positive things that you're supposed to notice, okay? And you actually do look for and try to catch those positive things. Now, if they're occurring, then what's going to happen to your mood? It's going to go up because you're noticing the positive. Okay? So one of the advantages to this particular tool is that it switches the individual's attention from negative to positive. Okay, back in the mid to late 70s, Lynn Ream developed what was called the self-control treatment for depression. And it was used with depressed adults. And part of his treatment was a pleasant event schedule. And what he had the depressed adults do was monitor their engagement in pleasant events. And that self-monitoring of the positive led to an improvement in mood. Okay? It's the same with, let's see, Peter Lewinson's behavioral intervention for depression. Primary treatment ingredient was pleasant event scheduling. What they had the people do was pay attention to positive things that were going on around them, switches attention from negative to positive. So if you can switch their attention from negative to positive, you're going to get an elevation in mood. Okay? So that's one way it works. Now, let's say that you not only are going to have them write down in here positive things they're going to attend to, but you also have them write in here fun things that they like to do and people that they like to hang out with and soothing and relaxing things that they like to do and things they like to do that expend energy. You have all those positive things written down on there. They're supposed to pay attention to whether they occur or not. So you're getting the boost in mood because you're shifting to the positive. But what do we know if you self-monitor a positive event of a positive behavior? What happens to the frequency of that behavior? Yeah, it increases. So if you self-monitor a positive behavior, the natural thing that people do is they increase its frequency. So if you're now doing more positive things, what happens to mood? Goes up. So this is one of our ways to get the kids behaviorally activated. We have them self-monitor their use of the emotion regulation strategies, the coping strategies. And we try to get them to increase their frequency. So the way this thing works is they write down whatever it is that they're going to self-monitor on this side, and over here under the days of the week, they check off whether they did that or noticed that thing happening. Underneath this cardboard piece where they write it down, there's a mood meter. And so at the end of the day, the kids in the top squares write down their mood rating for the day. And then the therapists graph it. So what would you guess the graph looks like of mood relative to engagement in pleasant activities, the coping strategies?
Positive forward.
Yeah. So what you find, and you graph it out for the kids, is the more things they do off their list, the higher their mood. And it's a great, really strong relationship. And it literally just keeps going up and down. So let's say that you've got one of the kids that you're working with, and they only did 2 things off their list, and yet mood went really high. What would that tell you? Those are really powerful things that they did. Okay? So I'm going to either that or you did something that wasn't on their list. But if they did something off the list and their mood was really high, then we know that's a really powerful coping strategy, and we're going to try to get them to do that even more often. Let's say they did a whole bunch of the things off the list and their mood's low. Or something happened. So if you go through, you graph out their week, and you see that on this day, their mood was really low, despite the fact they did a lot of the things on the list. You inquire what went on that day. So what was going on that led their mood to be so low? And the kids will start out with, I don't know, nothing. But if you start to do that kind of chaining that they talk about in DBT, where you say, you help them reconstruct it and talk about, okay, then what did you do? Then what did you do? What did you think? How did you feel? You can go back and reconstruct it, and you end up finding that there was some event that occurred that was really powerful and brought their mood down. Okay, so if I now know that this event commonly or sometimes occurs in their lives, and it has a really powerful impact on them, what am I going to do with that? What skill might I teach them? Since coping may not have worked so well, what other strategy might I try to use? Problem solving. I could use problem solving, like how do I prevent that from happening again? How do I minimize the impact of that thing on them? And I'd want to inquire about what was the meaning of that event for them. Okay, because remember, the meaning they draw from the event determines how they feel. And if it had a really big impact on them, there must have been a meaning about the self. So I'm going to look at that, and then I use cognitive restructuring. Right? Yeah.
What do you do if there are some kids, I'm just thinking maybe teenagers would put some things on here that they find fun, but maybe aren't exactly appropriate for them to be doing? Do you?
Yeah, we usually do. I mean, they kind of ruin it at times, you know, and it gets complicated then. And then you even have to think through, okay, is this something that they're doing that could be of danger, so they're at risk of harming themselves? So then do I have to break confidentiality and inform somebody about it? And you have to go into the whole discussion about confidentiality again, and if they tell you that they're going to be consuming large quantities of alcohol, then that could be dangerous for them. And then if they were saying that they were going to drive, then that is dangerous. So you end up having to really, it creates those sticky kind of situations where you might have to break confidentiality. So that gets to be a problem. I mean, it's just a problem, and then it can hurt the therapeutic relationship. But we're still stuck if they could hurt themselves having to inform. Other questions? Okay, so let's say that I wanted to have, if you think back to Mike, and we wanted to have Mike come to the conclusion that he's a lovable kid, a likable kid. How could we use this tool to help us with that?
Try to write down when someone compliments him.
Okay, so you could look for, you could have him, you can have him self-monitor anything. And so you would have him monitor, so what's evidence that you're likable? What would be some evidence that you're likable?
You make somebody laugh.
Okay, he makes someone laugh. What else?
You have friends.
Okay, so you interact with friends. Great. What else?
He accomplished something for himself, like homework, doing his homework.
Okay.
He did a good job.
Okay, all right. So that'd be a little bit more mastery than I'm lovable. Okay, so if we stuck with, that'd be a great one if I wanted him to see that he was efficacious. Okay, what else would be a I'm lovable piece of evidence?
Someone gives you a hug, or if your parents say that they love you.
There we go. That would be it. So we would have Mike write down, Mom says I love you. Dad calls me. I make a new friend. I have fun with a friend. We laugh together. So you'd write down those things, and then Mike's job is to check off each time they occur. And if he finds that those things are occurring, then what does that do?
Gets them to focus on the positive.
Okay, it's focusing on the positive, and if he's focusing on that positive and his belief is I'm unlovable,
Change the belief.
there we go. We're changing the beliefs. So it's a way to get to restructure his beliefs too. Yeah.
Is coming up with the things that you want to self-monitor a collaborative process with peers?
Yeah, it is. It's collaborative. So it would be saying to Mike, so Mike, how would you know if, how could you tell if somebody really did love you or like you? What would be the clues that would tell us that? And then the two of you collaboratively create that list. Okay? All right.
It will come out there too, right? If you call the pet.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the pet, we have a little dog and a cat, and well, we have two cats. And when I get home from work, every day, first thing I see when I look in the front door is the dog wagging its whole body, and one of the cats shows up, and they're there every day, and I'm like, how did they even know that I'm here? But they must hear it or something, and they're there, and that helps you feel like you're appreciated by them. Yeah.
Do you check each activity off once
Mm-hmm.
or
No, you just keep it simple. It's just once. So if it occurs once during the day, you check it off. Yeah. It'd be great if you could get them to do each time, but just getting them to do it once is good. Uh-huh.
Is it okay to have them do it like towards the end of the day as opposed to having it?
Yeah,
constantly?
that's a really good question. So when do you want them to do it? The closer to the event, the better. But a lot of times the kids don't want to be carrying this around school. So they'll do it like at the end of school, or they'll do it at the beginning of school, or about the previous day, or they'll do it at night when they get home. So we try to get them to do it as close to the events as possible, but sometimes that just doesn't work.
What if you have a child that's very resistant and just doesn't want to comply?
Well, so if that was the case, then it would mean I haven't I haven't done a good job of getting them motivated to do it. I haven't really given them a good rationale for doing it, or I might have to confront the child with the fact that I think maybe they don't want to change. Because sometimes there is secondary gain, and the kids really don't want to change because they have to give up something. And sometimes the kids just are really, really stuck in the negativity. And so I'll either have to work harder at getting their mood elevated, so that through getting them to do things that they're not monitoring, but that they just do, like they get parental help doing, or I get them to do, or they do on their own, but they're just not willing to monitor it, check it off. So if I can get mood up, that'll help sometimes too. Uh-huh.
What if the kid keeps giving excuses, like, my mom has to say this because she's my mom, or this person called me because they needed help with homework, or
Uh-huh.
things like that?
Yeah, okay. So in that case, what I would end up doing is I'd probably end up saying, oh, I get it. You prevent yourself from feeling better by coming up with excuses that allow you to not see the evidence. So what you do is you have somebody call you and ask you to help them with their algebra, and you say, they just did that. They didn't really, or what would you say when you have this negative twist? How do you twist it?
They'd say, well, they called me because they needed my help.
Ah, I see. So you think that having somebody else call you is not a good thing because they just needed your help. So what does that tell us if they called you because they needed help? What are they thinking about you and algebra?
Well, they knew you would help.
You're good at it.
So maybe they know that you're actually pretty good at algebra. Is that a horrible thing to have people calling you because they think you're good at algebra? Or is it kind of like a not so good thing because you think, they know I'm good at algebra, but they just don't like me. The only reason they're calling is because they want my help. So if you think that, then I get it. You wouldn't feel very good about it. But if you think, oh, they're calling me because they know I'm really good and they can count on me, then I'd feel good. So I think we have to check and see if there's evidence that people maybe do like you. So who was it that called you? Do you know that person? Do you hang out with that person? Do they talk to you in class? When they see you, do they smile? So I'd be asking the questions to try to help them see that maybe they called because they knew you're good at it, which is cool, plus they even like you. And let's say it turns out that you evaluate the evidence with that person, and it turns out they're not really a good friend, there's somebody who uses people, and they were calling you to kind of use you. Then what treatment strategy would I use? Well, maybe, but more likely I'm going to use problem solving. So the problem is you've got somebody who's calling you and asking you for help, and you really don't like it because you know that they're just using you and they're not really a good friend. So what's your goal? Your goal is to, and then let's say you say, I don't want him calling me anymore because he just uses me. Okay, so your goal is to get him to stop calling you. What are the possible solutions? Ignore it. So every time you see that person's phone number come up on your caller ID, you don't answer. Okay, that could be a possibility.
You can teach your child how to be assertive in an appropriate way.
Yeah, so you could teach her how to be assertive in an appropriate way and to let him know that you're not going to give any more help because he's not a good friend. Doesn't treat you nicely other times. And then you weigh the consequences of each of those, choose the best one, and then you do it. Okay? So, good question. Okay, so the Catch the Positive list is a really powerful tool. You can use it for cognitive restructuring. You can use it to change what they attend to. You can use it to get them to increase the probability of certain behaviors. So essentially, it's just a structured form of self-monitoring. You know, with older kids, I don't use this. I use a diary or a journal. For the boys, we call it a journal. For the girls, we call it a diary. And then it works out okay. So what age do we switch to that? Definitely. Or what age do we use this?
Age is older.
Oh, I would switch probably around 9th grade, maybe even 8th, depending on the maturity of the kid. But for the little younger ones, the elementary age and early middle school, it helps to have it more structured like this. So the way this thing is actually constructed is that this is kind of like hard cardboard, and it's spiral bound so that they can add more of the lists to it. And again, that fits with the question that came up before. Do they check it more than once? Well, they don't. And so it's a rough estimate, because if you have layers of these things that they're monitoring, you don't know if it's the one on this page or the one on the other page. So it's not exact in any way. But the idea is that you just want them to switch their focus onto the positive.